Over the last 28 hours or so, we've been going through Governor Kathy Hochul's State of the State address. Her written report that was given to the legislature and the people of New York was 237 pages long, 147 different proposals. You've obviously read all of that, right? But we've gone over some of the big headlines like changes to bail reform, changing the minimum wage, addressing mental health care. But tonight we're digging into another item on her to-do list, dealing with public safety with so much pressure on the governor to deal with rising crime rates in some places. The city of Rochester piloted a program that's called SAVE. It stands for Supervision Against Violent Engagement. What happens is that people on parole who are considered high risk have to wear ankle bracelets, and they're tracked by GPS with, quote, intensive supervision. The governor wants to expand that here to Buffalo and some other places. New state parole officers would be added. We just don't know how many. This is part of a bigger picture crime fighting plan.
I would say we can agree that the bail reform law as written leaves room for improvement. And as leaders, we cannot ignore that. When we hear so often from New Yorkers that their top concern is crime. Of course, we know that that won't automatically bring down crime rates. We don't expect that.
Well, let's talk about this now with Jeff Rinaldo, a retired Buffalo police captain. Always great to get your insight on these issues. And I know that you've kind of looked into this program that, again, is just down the thruway in Rochester. What should we know about it? And do you see this kind of making a difference in addressing crime here in Buffalo?
I think it can have a very positive impact. Basically, what the program does is it gives a lot of extra scrutiny to repeat offenders who are currently out on parole. Recidivism rate for violent crime is extremely high. So this program allows parole officers to pay extra attention, utilize electronic monitoring and other means in order to attempt to deter and then detect possible criminal activity amongst these people.
When you talk about the money and resources that would be put forward to something like this, do you see it as a good use of money? I mean, do you see it costing a lot of money, or is this one of those things that kind of just you can maybe get by on the cheap?
I think it is a good program and it's worth the money. What we've seen in law enforcement over the last decade is that when you're able to have the resources to put intense scrutiny on problems or problematic people, it pays dividends. It allows for better investigations, it allows for better intelligence gathering, and ultimately the goal of any of these programs is to deter crime and or be able to quickly hold people accountable that have committed these types of crimes.
This, as we mentioned, is part of a bigger effort. There was a lot of emphasis yesterday in the State of the State address, and as you look through the book that accompanies it, a lot of different programs and initiatives to try to deal with crime. It was obviously a very big issue in the governor's race. Another of the programs that we're hearing about is called GIVE. It's another acronym. This one is Gun-Involved Violence Elimination. Basically, police officers would be using gun violence data to really focus in on what they call hot spots in certain areas, try to get more officers out to community events in those particular areas, build relationships. I know that that's something that Buffalo police have kind of focused on, community policing, that sort of thing. This would be $36 million, $2 million coming here to Erie County. How do you see that fitting into an overall plan?
Sure. So in my time with BPD, they participated in the GIVE grant program for a number of years, and we saw a lot of successes with that program. Again, it allows for increased scrutiny, it allows for information sharing, it allows for different agencies to work collaboratively on combating gun violence. And again, when you can attempt to figure out who is responsible, or if it's a group of people responsible for gun crimes or gun-involved violence, then the more resources a police department can utilize to fight that and combat that, then the better the results and the safer the community becomes.
Something else that stood out in this crime conversation yesterday with the speech had to deal with fentanyl. This is obviously a big issue with the southern border. There's nothing we can really do about that here in terms of local law enforcement or really even the state. But there is this effort now, I guess, to hire more crime analysts to try to track the distribution and deaths that are related to fentanyl. It is such a huge problem in so many different places. Would that make a difference, you think, here, or is that just sort of scratching the surface of this?
No, I think it will make a difference. I was on the opioid task force in my capacity with the BPD, and over a number of years we were able to, again, working collaboratively with hospitals and care providers and treatment centers, we were able to really reduce the number of overdose deaths here in Erie County, and the county actually won an award for the program. Unfortunately, during COVID, the focus was removed from that, and we saw the death rate spike again. And now it seems that fentanyl is appearing not just in heroin, but in other types of drugs. So again, a targeted program to go after fentanyl, to gather intelligence, share that data, will help to reduce the overdose deaths that we're seeing in our communities.
It is so deadly, and we hear stories every single day, so something to continue to follow. Jeff Rinaldo is a former Buffalo police captain, now partner at Vista Security Group, helps us understand all these law enforcement issues. Thanks so much for coming in. It's good to see you.
Thank you.